Welcome.
Welcome to the Everything Podcast. In this episode, I'm going to be recapping the final ever episode of Gavin and Stacey, which I've titled it here as Gavin and Stacey 2024 Christmas Special, which it technically is because it released on the 25th of December 2024, but its actual title is Gavin and Stacey the Finale. Now, you might be saying, Ben, well, you haven't talked about it before, and I was actually considering that, but then I kind of went, I'm actually glad I didn't, because as I mentioned in yesterday's episode, it took me 4.5 hours to write this. It is 90 minutes, so it does make sense. It's not like a Neighbours episode or a What If episode where they're 20 to 30 minutes. This is I think it was actually 94 minutes to be precise. And as I mentioned in yesterday's episode, with the amount of turns it takes, but I recorded this on the 30th of December 2024, so 5 days after, it came out. Released, but it'll be, I think it's over a month. I think if I've done my maths right, will be coming out about the 27th of January. So yeah, that is a long time. And I do apologise now for how long this episode is. It is 6 pages because of that nature. A, because of the runtime of 94 minutes, and B, because of how quick it turns. And Sir James Corden Reeve-Jones, who created and have written all the episodes of Gavin and Stacey, did say that this is the last one and it becomes clear. And spoiler free for a second, there is a couple of times where you go, oh, this is why it's ending, this is why it's ending. But definitely by the end, you definitely get that idea. But yeah, so I apologise to Matthew for how long this episode's going to be. I don't know how long it's going to be, like I'm nearly 2 minutes in and I haven't started. I do apologise for the ending of yesterday's episode where I kind of did 2 outros because I kind of had forgotten about the trailer, but I did do it at the end and I'm glad I did. So without further ado, here is my recap for Gavin and Stacey, the finale, which was the Gavin and Stacey 2024 Christmas Special and is the last ever episode of Gavin and Stacey. So you'll never hear me do another Gavin and Stacey recap. Here is my recap for Gavin and Stacey, the finale. Stacey rings Gavin. Stacey informs Gavin that she has dropped her and Gavin's kids' bags off at Glenda's, who will be picking the kids up from school. Gavin asks how the children reacted when Stacey said goodbye. Stacey is looking forward to a weekend, just her and Gavin. Gavin corrects Stacey. Gavin reminds Stacey about his and Smithy's suit fittings tomorrow morning. Stacey reminisces about her and Gavin's wedding. Stacey reminds Gavin about an upcoming wedding. We then have the title sequence. Pam calls out for Mick. Mick is playing indoor golf. Pam reminds Mick of their house being open to guests today. Mick reminds Pam that the guests aren't arriving for another 8 hours. Pam asks Mick to tidy away his indoor golf. Mick reminds Pam that the food could have just been a takeaway. Pam practices her hosting skills. Pam doubts her current placement of certain foods. Mick asks Pam to calm down. Pam reminisces about Mick working. Pam asks Mick to get out of the house more often. Mick checks in with Pam. Mick reminds Pam what is actually happening. Mick convinces Pam to have a go at indoor golf. Bryn issues instructions for Gwen to follow. Gwen. It was Gwen. Sorry, I got the name wrong. Probably with the 6 pages. Gwen doubts the bike rack size for Bryn's car. Bryn asks if Gwen drives. Gwen does not. Gwen reminds Bryn that they are only going to Essex for 2 nights. Bryn believes Gwen is attacking his character. Stacey's planning on going to shops, as is Gwen. Bryn starts to panic when the When going to the shop is mentioned, Bryn informs Gwen and Stacey that they are leaving even in 3 hours 11 minutes. Gwen needs to go somewhere but won't tell Bryn and Stacey where it is. Gwen, what is it with my voice today and words? I've told you when I'm recording this the 30th of December 2024, so I'm recording a couple of episodes today. Gwen promises to be in Bryn's car by 2:30. Smithy calls Gavin. Smithy believes that this weekend is going to be the most epic weekend of both in his and Gavin's lives. Smithy is currently in John Lewis. Smithy and his partner are currently writing their wedding list. Pause. I should actually mention that the last episode that it was left on a cliffhanger. I think I do mention it later on in the recap, but just 5 years. If you've watched the episode, you know what I'm talking about. Gavin suggests how to write your wedding list. Smithy asks Gavin what his and the others' ETA is. Gavin guesses around 6. Smithy and Gavin are confused with the idea of meeting up the night before the stag do. Gavin and Smithy mention Bryn's alcohol capacity. Smithy's bride is to be as Sonia. Nessa now works as a transport bike rider. So what I should mention is that the cliffhanger was that Nessa proposed to Smithy, and we didn't know what was said, and it was kind of assumed that could have been where they ended Gavin and Stacey, but obviously they haven't, because otherwise this episode wouldn't exist. And it was, so Sonia was Smithy's girlfriend in that special, who we hadn't met before, but yeah, bride to be now. So yeah, just a bit of a catchback. If I do repeat myself, it's just because I can't remember what I wrote, because it was 4 days ago, and and it being 4.5 hours of writing the episode. Nessa wants to be paid £75 by the current passengers. Nessa calls the tone that one of the passengers uses as triggering. Nessa believes this passenger is damaging her mental health. The passengers pay by Apple Pay. Nessa offers to give Stacey a lift. Nessa asks Stacey if she wants music. Stacey accepts. Nessa plays the harmonica. Nessa wants Stacey to pay £10 until Stacey reminds her that she owes her £20. Nessa yells at someone. Nessa reveals that she has been doing the same job for 47 years. Nessa reveals that she is not looking forward to the Essex trip. Nessa believes that Sonia doesn't like her. Nessa doesn't want to go. Nessa mentions Neil the baby. No. Nessa is considering bailing on the Essex trip. Stacey doesn't want this. Stacey asks Nessa to see Sonia's hen night as a normal night out. Stacey reminds Nessa that they haven't had a night out in ages. Neil the baby informs Stacey and Nessa that he's been accepted into college. Nessa expresses her pride in Neil the baby. Neil the baby is calling Smithy, telling the good news. Nessa asks Stacey to give him some nunchucks. Smithy is driving while Sonia is talking to him. Yes, that's another typo. So is talking to him about wedding plans. Sonia wants Smithy to find out his friends' real names. Smithy reveals Dirtbox's real name. Sonia informs Smithy that she isn't coming to Pam tonight. Sonia doesn't quite understand why Smithy convinced her to invite Dawn and Nessa to her hen do. Sonia believes Pam is an attention seeker. Sonia is looking forward to getting married to Smithy, which would involve not seeing people as often. Budgie rings Smithy. Sonia asks Budgie what his real name is. Stacey catches Bryn laughing to himself. Bryn comes clean and shows Stacey what is in the bag. Gavin returns home. Bryn asks Gavin if he is planning on having a shower. Gavin plans on just grabbing his belongings. Gavin and Bryn say the same thing at the same time. Stacey suggests roleplay to Gavin. Gavin questions this. Stacey outlines what this roleplay would look like. Gavin agrees to the roleplay. Stacey introduces Gavin to some glasses she bought. Gavin believes they are men's glasses. Stacey reveals they are glasses from a dead man. Gavin points out some holes in Stacey's roleplay idea. Stacey gives Gavin a preview of the roleplay. Bryn informs Ness that he is prepared to leave without some, if not all of the passengers, if they are late. Gwen returns home. Bryn is doing a 1-minute countdown until he is leaving. Gavin, Stacey, Gwen and Nessa get into Bryn's car in time. They start their journey to Essex. Dawn arrives at Pam and Mick's. Dawn explains why she is early. Dawn suggests a salsa class. Pam agrees. Pam reveals she is busy this Tuesday. Pam reveals the reason she is busy is she and Mick are visiting Pete at his flat. Dawn insults Pete Pam defends Pete. Pam reminds Dawn that she and Pete have been divorced for 6 months. Dawn reveals that Pete got in an Uber at 3:30 a.m. Dawn is still tracking Pete's phone. Dawn lists the dating apps Pete currently has on his phone. Pam reminds Dawn that she is the one that wants a divorce. Dawn realises she's being unreasonable. Dawn believes that Pete is in a relationship. Dawn mentions Pete going to the same house 17 times across 2 weeks. Dawn asks both Pam and Mick if Pete is seeing someone. Pam stays quiet and Mick walks out the room. Pam slaps Dawn. Pam apologises. Dawn calls herself dried up. Dawn reveals she went on a date with Chinese Alan last week. Dawn expands on the details of this date. Pam reminds Dawn that this weekend is about Smithy and Sonia. The Wales contingent is still over 3 hours away. Gavin offers to be the driver if Bryn no longer wants to. Bryn has a private conversation with Gavin whilst Gwen, Stacey and Nessa are asleep. Bryn wants Gavin to not think of them as Stacey's uncle. Think of him, even, as Stacey's uncle. Bryn asks Gavin to hold his hand. Bryn believes that what happens on the stag do stays on the stag do. Mick asks Pam about Dawn's well-being. Mick is willing to ask Pete not to come. Pam is insistent that Pete should still attend. Mick believes he and Pam are the only couple still together out of his and Pam's friendship group. Pam corrects Mick. Mick asks Pam about Sue. Smithy arrives at Pam and Mick's. Pam, Mick and Smithy make multiple stag jokes. Mick asks Smithy about when Sonia is arriving. Smithy lies to Pam and Mick about why Sonia is not attending. Dawn agrees to help Pam set up. Smithy mentions Dawn's date with Chinese Alan. Dawn attacks Smithy. Smithy fills in Mick about Dawn's date with Chinese Alan. Bryn, Gwen, Stacey, Nessa and Gavin arrive at Pam and Mick's. Smithy also lies to Stacey about why Sonia is not attending. Smithy mentions Nessa previously wanting to give up smoking. Smithy and Nessa discuss Neil the baby getting into college. Smithy thanks Nessa for coming to Essex. Smithy doubts his decision regarding Neil the baby's attendance at the stag do. Smithy double checks that Nessa can't attend his and Sonia's wedding. Gavin and Stacey do some roleplay. Gavin stops this when Stacey slightly goes a step too far. Pam informs everyone that food is ready. Everyone helps themselves to the buffet. Gwen and Bryn discuss a restaurant near theirs. Bryn questions Gwen. Pam reads out a message she has just received from Damien. Gwen mentions Doris. Pam asks Mick to get some more wine. Smithy asks Bryn, Gavin and Mick to stop drinking whilst expressing his opinion on the hen do. Smithy reminds everyone that tonight is not either the stag or hen do. Smithy imposes a 10 p.m. curfew. Pam checks in with Smithy. Smithy believes his stag do is the most important day of his life. Gavin reassures Smithy. Gavin outlines what tomorrow looks like for Smithy. Smithy reveals the first person he slept with. Pam and Mick reveals this woman's age. Mick uses science to convince Smithy that the plan for tonight is the right one. Smithy expresses his love for Mick. Pete arrives at Pam and Mick's. Pete reveals he is currently fasting. Dawn storms out in tears. Pam wants everyone to be happy while she talks to Dawn. Dawn vents to Pam about Pete. Pam reminds Dawn that tonight is a celebration. Nessa gives Dawn some advice. Stacey mentions Pete and Dawn always arguing. Stacey believes Nessa fancies Pete. Nessa attempts to open up to Stacey about the events that took place in the 2019 Christmas special, which I mentioned earlier. Stacey keeps interrupting and theorising what Nessa is telling her. Nessa mentions her proposal to Smithy. Nessa reveals that Smithy didn't say yes or no, as Gavin interrupted them. The day after Nessa proposed to Smithy, he and Sonia got engaged. Nessa reveals she is heartbroken and that is the reason she won't be attending Smithy and Sonia's wedding. Stacey hugs Nessa. Nessa wants Stacey to promise not to tell anyone. Stacey promises. Stacey tells Gavin. Gavin tells Smithy. Smithy explains why he didn't tell anyone about Nessa's proposal. Gavin reminds Smithy that Nessa is the mother of his child. Sonia rings Smithy to tell him she's going to bed. Sonia asks to be passed to Gavin. Sonia asks Gavin to make sure that Smithy doesn't sleep in. Sonia reminds Gavin and Smithy of their suit fitting times. I'm nearly halfway and this is 13 minutes long. This is the reason why I did mention it's going to be a longer episode and I have expressed my apologies to Matthew. But it probably will help with it being so far in advance. Nessa is on the phone to someone called Craig. Nessa yells at Stacey after Smithy brings up her proposal. Stacey hits Gavin for telling Smithy about Nessa, telling Stacey about her proposal. Nessa regrets proposing to Smithy. Nessa reminds Smithy of Neil the baby's age and soon she and Smithy will not need to be in each other's lives. Bryn volunteers to answer the door when the doorbell rings. Jason arrives. Jason gives Smithy a present. Jason explains this present. Everyone apart from Jason agree on Mick's science regarding alcohol. Everyone drinks the same drink at the same time. Mick attempts to stop Dawn and Pete from arguing. This is unsuccessful. Dawn exposes her tracking Pete. Pete wants Dawn to leave him alone. Pete mentions baby reindeer. Pam and Mick ask Dawn and Pete to sort themselves out. Mick reminds Dawn and Pete why they were invited in the first place. Several people do the limbo. Mick gives out drinks. Nessa explains what tzatziki is. Nessa demonstrates how to use tzatziki. Nessa and Smithy feed each other. Stacey suggested the roleplay idea. Gavin asks Stacey to follow him. Pete and Dawn sleep together. Gavin and Stacey catch them. Everyone dances except for Bryn. Nessa pours a drink directly into Smithy's mouth. Gavin wakes Smithy up at 12:30 p.m. Over 3 hours after their suit fittings were meant to take place, Sonia has called Smithy 48 times. Smithy believes Sonia is going to kill him. Smithy blames Jason for missing the suit fittings. Smithy yells at Jason. Mick suggests that him and Gavin rearrange their suit fittings. Gwen asks about Bryn. Nessa fills everyone in on Bryn's current state. Bryn throws up. Pete declares that he and Dawn slept together last night. Smithy asks Mick to break his arm. Mick refuses. Smithy rolls down the stairs to try and break his arm after everyone refuses to do so. Smithy mentions Sonia's nan having a fall. Gavin and Smithy's friends fill them in. Biker Grove is mentioned. Smithy reminds his and Gavin's friends what Biker Grove is. Bryn and Jason arrive at Smithy's stag do. Bryn, Jason, Pete, Mick, Gavin and his and Smithy's friends are all wearing West Ham shirts. Bryn mentions Aaron Ramsey, who I believe is some kind of football player. You can probably tell by that I don't follow many sports, or any, as a matter of fact. Nessa mentions being a taxi driver. Nessa remembers losing her driving licence. Stacey asks Gwen questions she doesn't want to answer. Dawn and Pete aren't on the same page about where they stand with each other after last night. Bryn shows Budgie what is in the bag. Bryn reminds Budgie that today is Smithy's stag do. Chinese Alan arrives at Smithy's stag do. Gavin gives everyone a countdown on how long they have to finish their current drink. Nessa, Stacey, Gwen, Pam and Dawn arrives at Sonia's hen do. Smithy reassures Bryn that he doesn't have to drink as much as everyone else. Mick delivers a speech. Mick mentions him and Pam not being able to have another baby. Mick considers Smithy part of his family. Smithy thanks Mick for his speech. Pam describes her hen do. Sonia reveals that Smithy has paid for everything for the wedding. Some of Sonia's friends host a quiz about Smithy for Sonia. Nessa gets the question right that Sonia gets wrong. Pam, Nessa, Stacey, Gwen and Dawn organise something for Sonia, which isn't appreciated like they thought it might be. Smithy asks Gavin where Mick and Pete are. Gavin fills Smithy in. Gavin and Simon have also left. Bryn gives Smithy a doll and handcuffs him. Budgie apologises. Gavin apologises. Gavin checks in with Smithy with his feelings about his wedding. Smithy and Gavin believe they are old. Gavin, Stacey, Nessa and Smithy are the only ones still out. Gavin asks Stacey and Nessa if he and Smithy can join them. They agree. Nessa and Stacey have different interpretations of the outcome of Sonia's hen do. Stacey orders their KFC order. Smithy mentions his wedding taking place in a week. Smithy opts to go home. Smithy promises to call Gavin tomorrow. Smithy and Nessa will see each other on Friday. Nessa and Smithy understand each other. Sonia helps Smithy sort out his belongings. Sonia explains some of these belongings. Smithy lies to Sonia about a ring. Smithy attempts to explain this. Smithy attacks one of the machines. No, that's wrong. Nessa attacks one of the machines at her workplace. Nessa mentions Neil the baby leaving and calls Gavin and Stacey boring. Stacey believes Nessa considering leaving is due to Smithy getting married. Nessa agrees. Nessa informs Stacey of a job offer she has received. Stacey is prepared to choose Nessa over going to Smithy and Sonia's wedding. Nessa promises Stacey she will be okay. I'm on page 5 of 6. I can't actually remember how full page 6 is, but we're definitely in the final third. And we're currently at 18 minutes long, so we'll definitely be over 20. Let's get back to the recap. Nessa doesn't think Smithy will get married. Jason, Stacey and Nessa are looking for Gwen. They can't find her. Gwen comes clean about being in a relationship. Gwen's boyfriend is Dave. Dave was engaged to Nessa in the season three of Gavin and Stacey. So that was, I think it's about 15 years ago. Gwen explains why she wasn't upfront about her relationship with Dave. Stacey tells Bryn. Bryn questions Gwen and Dave about their relationship. Gwen reveals that she has been with Dave for 6 months. Bryn calls Dave a rat. Dave confesses his love for Gwen. Jason stops Bryn from attacking Dave. Bryn explains why he feels so hurt. Gwen mentions Bryn and Jason's fishing trip. Jason reveals that Bryn told Dave what happened on his and Jason's fishing trip. Bryn challenges Dave to tell Gwen what he knows about the fishing trip. Dave agrees. Dave tells Gwen what happened on the fishing trip. The omelettes interrupt Dave discussing the fishing trip. Gavin reveals he is struggling to write his best man speech. Pam reminds Gavin that Smithy's wedding is tomorrow. Pam believes Smithy marrying Sonia is a mistake. Gavin regrets bringing up the wedding. Gavin asks a call from Smithy. Neil the baby packs his belongings into Smithy's car. Nessa is leaving tomorrow. Smithy promises to keep Nessa in the loop where Neil the baby is concerned. Nessa threatens Smithy. Smithy gives Nessa her ring back. Neil the baby says goodbye to Bryn and Nessa. Nessa the baby reminds Nessa that he loves her. Nessa says the same. Stacey fills Pam in about Gwen and Dave's relationship. Just hit the 20-minute mark on this episode, by the way. Pam has already thought about her plans once Mick has passed away. Gavin points out that Mick may not die first. Stacey has the same reservations about Smithy and Sonia's wedding that Pam does. Smithy and Neil, the baby, arrive at Pam and Mick's. Gavin and Stacey fill them in about the issues between Bryn and Dave. Dave, Gwen and Jason are in the bus. Bryn is in his car by himself. Sonia gets annoyed at the wedding photographer. Sonia asks her mum to help Stacey and the bridesmaids. Gwen checks in with Smithy. Bryn, Gwen, Dave and Jason arrive at the wedding venue. Dave congratulates Smithy. Jason stops Bryn from ranting about +1s. Smithy's sister arrives at the wedding venue. Smithy speaks to his nephews, who arrive alongside his mum. Smithy helps his mum find her seat. Smithy's sister asks Gavin about Smithy. Pam, Mick, Dawn and Pete arrive at the wedding venue. Dawn reveals that she and Pete are back together. Gavin and Smithy's friends arrive at the wedding venue. Wrong person. Stacey expresses her concerns about the wedding to Gavin. Gavin reminds Stacey about their wedding day. Stacey asks Gavin if Sonia is the person for Smithy. Gavin begs Stacey to not say anything. Sonia walks down the aisle. Sonia wants Smithy to change his shoes. Smithy promises to change his shoes. Smithy and Sonia's wedding starts. Neil the baby performs. Nessa packs her bags for her new job. Nessa gets emotional closing her arcade. Nessa gets on a coach to Southampton. Gavin gives the celebrant the wedding rings. Gavin tells Smithy he thinks he is making a mistake. Bryn backs up what Gavin says, as does Stacey. Pete, the celebrant asks everyone who thinks Smithy and Sonia's wedding should not go ahead, they should stand up. Pam, Gwen, Neil the baby, among others, join Gavin, Stacey, Bryn, Pete and Dawn. Smithy asks Mick his opinion. Mick stands up like everyone else. Smithy believes Sonia doesn't love him. Smithy also doesn't believe he loves Sonia. Smithy apologises. We're now on the final page. Smithy mentions some events from season 1, episode 1 of Gavin and Stacey, which is 17 years ago. Stacey asks Pete and Dawn to pick up her and Gavin's children. Dave proposes that everyone go in the bus. Bryn declines. Gavin sets Bryn straight. Bryn agrees. Smithy thanks Dave. Everyone is trying to catch Nessa when she arrives in Southampton. Pam expresses her pride for Smithy. The bus gets stuck in traffic until Dave and Bryn, along with Jason, come up with a solution. Dave drives his bus across a field. Nessa arrives in Southampton. Gwen and Dave kiss. Mick attempts to reassure Smithy. Jason mentions ringing Nessa as their proposed first option, not as a last resort. Smithy apologises to Nessa for not answering her proposal. Nessa refuses to propose to Smithy a second time. Smithy expresses her love for Nessa. Smithy proposes to Nessa. Nessa and Smithy get married. Nessa and Smithy refuse to kiss. Nessa and Smithy hug. Gavin delivers a speech, as does Bryn, Mick and Stacey. Bryn and Nessa sing. Everyone dances. Stacey talks to Gavin about Nessa and Smithy getting married, and everyone assembles for a group photo. That is my recap for the Gavin and Stacey 2024 Christmas special, titled Gavin and Stacey the finale, which is obvious. It's the last ever episode of Gavin and Stacey. So yeah, this is a long episode, currently at 23.5 minutes. Now on to tomorrow's episode, while I get a minute to catch my breath, and that is, what is it? I think it's another episode of What If. I think so anyway. Wrong page, let's just check. It is, what is it? It is Oh yes, another episode of What If titled What If the Emergence to Destroy the Earth. So here's the trailer for What If Season 3.
Let's begin. Up for an adventure?
Always.
To understand, you must learn to see.
What exactly are you proposing?
It's showtime.
Here we go!
Howard, are you sure you can fly this?
Are you kidding? I'm a duck. I was born to fly. Strap in.
Oh, move over.
If we all go down, the world will be left defenseless. This is the shot we have. We may not get another one. Let's finish it.
Oh, we're good to go.
Avenger, assemble.
Line them up now.
This is where your story ends. With some mysteries, the only answer is what if.
Maybe it's time that we called in some help.
That was the trailer for What If Season 3, because as I've mentioned in previous episodes, there is no specific episode trailer that there will be for other shows that I will be discussing on the podcast. But back to the episode, let me know what you thought of Gavin and Stacey, the finale, if you watched it, my review if you didn't. You can put your thoughts on both of those in the comments below, as well with anything else you want me to cover on the channel, such as any previews or recaps. Put those in the comments below as well, and remember you can also like, comment and subscribe, and that's it for this episode of the Everything Podcast. Goodbye.